Monday, February 13th. It's almost Valentine's Day, the most important day of the year, especially if you're into high-end fashion and you live in Vegas. The week of February 13th through the 17th is nothing like anything you've ever experienced, and that is saying something in Vegas. High fashion struts the runways of Vegas. Like Paris, like New York, like Tokyo, Las Vegas is one of the fashion capitals of the world. What? You didn't know that? They call it Magic Las Vegas. Not only is it the biggest fashion center in the U.S., but it is also the biggest fashion marketplace in the U.S. High fashion in Vegas is a big deal. I bet you only thought we gambled here in the City of Lights that never go out. I'm Sean Holloway, a junior at UNLV, and one day I want to be a lawyer. However, I will need a couple extra years to finish the program. That's another story. Being a lawyer is my long-term dream, because right now I am in a makeup chair preparing for the Mondesi Male Spring Collection fashion show, specifically beach and late-night attire. My day job is a cashier at an off-campus bookstore. My fun job is a model, and in an hour I'll be walking the customized catwalk through the banquet halls at the Bernini Casino. I made it through makeup and wardrobe, hung out with some of the other models, and then one of the organizers quietly said, "Places, everybody, 2 minutes." It doesn't matter how many times I've walked the catwalk, I always feel a little nervous and thrilled. Not only does the event have a live audience, it is also live streamed throughout the world. Madame Mondesi, a 60-ish woman with sequined glasses and hair dyed a light brown with gold highlights, flickered among all the models, touching up somebody's hair or smoothing out a wrinkle. She always speaks with a Bostonian accent, so I guess she's from the East Coast. There's a dozen cameramen here, a news crew, and a bunch of reporters. The excitement is thick and infectious. The clothes that have been selected for me were designer navy blue board shorts with apricot trim, a long beach jacket in pale yellow with navy trim, hanging open to reveal my chest, and custom flip-flops that matched the beach jacket. Madame Mondesi stepped next to me and splayed the jacket wide open so as to reveal my entire chest, and the 5 silver necklaces and 1 rosary that swung loosely about my neck. They even gave me a fake tattoo of a dolphin just above my heart. And the hairstylist dyed my hair sun blonde and created a wind-blown look. Of course I'm 6 feet. That's standard height for a runway model. But I've also had a couple of catalog shoots. And even shot a perfume commercial. I've also been one of the background bits of eye candy in the latest video for Pixie with One Red Shoe. As an accessory, Madame Mondesi had me holding a beach ball next to my left hip. I'm a little flattered that I was chosen to wear something revealing. It meant my body looked the part. Muscled, but not too muscled. Abs, but not bodybuilder abs. Lean, but not skinny. We had to have the perfect look to pass Madame Mondesi's strict standards. I hadn't had pizza for a month, or drunk anything that might have had carbs in it, and cheesy noodles were definitely out of the question. Madame Mondesi had only selected 10 models out of the 100 to sport swimsuits, and I was one. Every guy here looked almost the same. They had high chiseled cheekbones, and lean tight faces, and abs, and enough makeup to present the illusion of perfect skin and erase any 5 o'clock shadows. Body hair was not allowed, so we had to shave or get lasered so we would all have that sleek, toned look. "Remember your walk, my darlings," Madame Mondesi ordered. "Quick, but not too fast. Purposeful, but relaxed. I want a gently serious look on your face, but don't frown. Look like you're having fun, but not too much fun. Remember, don't smile. They are looking at the clothes, not your faces. And project confidence. Make me proud." The catwalk actually covered 3 rooms, with 5 rows of seats to the right and the floor-to-ceiling mirrors to the left. It wasn't the traditional walk to the end of the runway, pivot, and return, but a long walk from point A to point B to point C to point D. When everybody was done with their walk, we'd make the procession walk back to where we began, and then pose for an hour or so while the fashion critics, the art critics, potential buyers, and spies from other designers gawked at the clothes. The music began, a techno cheerful vibe reminiscent of the beach. The halls were dramatically dark, and slowly, dramatically, began to lighten. The seated crowd quieted. Spotlights came up, lighting only the path the models would take. A fashion show is nothing but pure drama designed to sell clothes. Somebody with a headset looked at us, pressed an earpiece tight to his head, then held his hand out, fingers splayed. He silently counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We all assumed the face, cheeks slightly sucked in, no smiles, no emotion. The first model led the way. Exactly every 6 seconds, the next model would begin their walk. In the practice runs yesterday, we timed ourselves and learned it would take 12 minutes to showcase the whole menswear collection. Ironically, tomorrow in this exact place, Madame Mondesi would showcase her woman's line. The guy with the headset looked at me and nodded. My turn for the catwalk. I began my walk, matching pace with the guy in front of me. I let the necklaces swing naturally. This is the part I enjoy. The rapid flash of the cameras, the stoic faces of the models, and wearing clothes I could never afford. For 12 minutes, I lived in an adrenaline wonderland, because that is how long the whole show lasted. Hundreds of flashes went off, not to mention the constant streaming. Sometime later this week, I'd find myself on YouTube, strutting down the aisle. I shunted my nerves to the side and focused on achieving the perfect look. It's my job. Some of these new pictures would get added to my portfolio and to my collection of headshots. Ironically, months of work came down to a dozen minutes. Towards the end of the second room, I spotted someone familiar. Not him. What was he doing here? Cooper Lefevre, student body vice president of my senior year in high school? He was one of the most popular kids. All the girls loved his sharp smile and his soft green eyes and the confident way he carried himself. All the guys were jealous of the way he could flirt or be at ease with the women. He'd only been 5.5 feet tall up until his sophomore year when a hefty growth spurt left him at 6 foot. In my opinion, he was the most handsome of the student body officers, but also the one that thought he could pick on anybody, because he was only having a little harmless fun. I must be mistaken. It can't be him. Why would he be at Madame Mondesi's menswear fashion show? I hadn't seen the jerk since he gave the speech at high school graduation 4 years back. Maybe I'm wrong. In this lighting, it would be easy to make a mistake. Midway through my walk through the second room, I walked close to him and internally cringed. That was Cooper, my high school bully. It reminded me of the time he shoved me so hard that I fell onto the lunch tray I'd been carrying. Chocolate milk and mediocre lasagna coated my chest. I'd reported it. He told the administrators that it was an accident. They believed him because he was one of the good kids, not someone like me who had attendance issues because I was always away for a photo shoot. How many times had he accidentally knocked me into the lockers or knocked my books to the ground, and then he and his friends laughed at me? I tried reporting him, but according to the school administrators, Cooper always said it was a misunderstanding. I learned to avoid him. He called me Pretty Boy, his special nickname for me, because, well, actually, I don't know why he called me that. The point is, the other kids started calling me that too. I hated it. I hated him. I hated my high school senior year. Don't know what happened, but starting in March, he left me alone. I took a deep breath and ignored him. I needed to stay composed. Cooper didn't matter. Only the job for Madame Mondesi mattered right now. Cooper held a high-end camera in one hand, and on a chair next to him lay a camera bag with a collection of lenses. He knelt on one knee, shooting pictures of the models as they passed. Was he a photographer now? A freelance reporter? Maybe he wouldn't recognize me, and we'll both go our separate ways. Two ships that almost crashed in the night. My turn to pass his ship. He looked into the lens of his camera, straight at me, and stiffened. Yep, in spite of my dyed blonde hair, my old senior class vice president remembered me. I forced myself to have no reaction. Just because Cooper had recognized me didn't mean I had to acknowledge him. I strutted past him, trying to ignore both the fear and the anger in my heart, and failing. I hope I didn't start sweating. The last thing Madame Mondesi would want is sweat stains on her precious clothes. I finished my walk and lined up with the other models. We waited in the hallway just past the third room for the signal. It came. The house lights brightened. All 100 of us walked in unison, back to where we started. Cooper still stood there, but in addition to taking pictures, he wore a Bluetooth earpiece and spoke to someone. I think he said, "I have an idea." His eyes darted to me, focusing on my face. It's confirmed. My old bully recognized me. As much as I tried not to, I looked at him with as cold a look as I could manage and still stay in my stoic persona. We were both aware of each other. All the models reached the first room, and as one, we lined up and turned and bowed to the audience. A pathway opened between the models, and Madame Mondesi stepped out and took a bow. Everybody clapped. My 12 minutes of glory were over. Now it was time to get to work. The models lined up on the 3-room catwalk, showcasing the clothes. The models were to be seen and not heard. Representatives from the Madame Mondesi line did all the talking. We showed off the clothes. Potential customers came up to us to get a closer look, or speak with the representatives about the fabrics, about ordering, about size availability, and about eventual mass productions. It didn't require me to think, merely look the part. We were living mannequins. But because of this, I can pay tuition next semester. Among the people looking through the models and the clothes was Cooper. He took pictures of various models, spoke with some of the representatives, and eventually made his way to me. Cooper stopped in front of me, snapped a couple of pictures, and waited for me to be alone. The old nerves hit. Why was Cooper here? Did he realize that the security guard was 20 feet from him, and the other models were close by? Madame Mondesi would disembowel him if he damaged her precious clothes. He better not try anything. "Sean, you might not remember me," Cooper said. I kept my face stoic and cold as I said, "I remember enough, Cooper. You need to move on. There are others who want to preview the collection." "Can you turn for a profile?" some lady asked me. I slowly swiveled and struck a pose. She stepped forward, picked up the hem of the jacket, and examined the stitching. "Do you know if this comes in other colors?" I pointed at one of the attendants and said, "They'll be happy to answer those questions." Cooper hadn't left. I wanted to be rude, but I was also representing Madame Mondesi, and I wanted her to invite me back for her next fashion show. Cooper hadn't done anything, except take pictures. And then he asked, "Sean, you're looking really good. Can we get coffee and talk? I'll buy." I folded my arms and said, "Cooper, we were never friends. In fact, it was the opposite. I've tried to forget many of the old times, like when you shoved me into the lasagna or tripped me." "You still remember those?" Cooper said. "Vividly," I said. "High school wasn't a box of chocolates." Cooper gave me a sheepish, almost embarrassed grin and said, "I like to think I've grown up since then." A quiver floated down the row of models, and the guy with the headphones announced, "Gentlemen, your job is done. Please change and make sure we have the proper contact information. We will upload payment within the week. Madame Mondesi offers her personal thanks for making this show one of her best." Time to change back into street clothes and leave this high-class dump. The place did not have the facilities for 100 guys to shower at once, so I would stop off at Mildred's Diner for takeout before heading to my apartment to wash all the makeup off my face before it caused a breakout. It was still early. I could go clubbing with my friend and roommate, Zach. "Goodbye, Cooper," I said. "Wait, I need to talk to you," he said, and held out his hand with a small piece of paper. It looked like it had a phone number on it. "Can you call me later?" What was his issue? Did he expect me to like him after all the crap he pulled back in high school? I left the paper in his hand. As I walked away, I said, "Next time you knock the books out of my hand, I'll be sure to call you something. See you around." "High school was 4 years ago," he said. "You can't hold it against me forever." "Watch me," I said. I went into the room with all the clothing racks. People assisted me in removing the clothes and put them delicately on the rack to be washed later. They treated them like expensive jewelry. Since they were prototypes, they might be. To say I was exhausted is an understatement. But, like after all shows, I was ecstatic. There is an electricity running through your body after something like this. It's the best natural high I've ever known. After I'd changed, I headed outside to my car, a 6-year-old white Nissan Altima I'd bought used. Somebody waited for me by the exit. "Cooper, this is getting old." For a second, I thought about turning around and heading inside. At least the jerk didn't have his cronies with him. I took a firmer grip on my backpack and walked to my car. "Sean, wait!" Cooper yelled. "I don't want to talk to you," I said, and kept heading for my car. "Don't be so sensitive," he said. "About high school, I was only having a little bit of fun because I was under a lot of stress. Cut me some slack." I didn't even say anything, but increased my pace. "Would you stop for a minute and listen?" Cooper said. "This is important." I didn't stop. I didn't say anything. I almost resisted the urge to flip him off, but it felt glorious as my left hand flipped the bird. I should have done that back in high school. Cooper's voice softened as he said, "Damn it, Sean, just give me a minute. It's important." I reached my car and beeped it. Before I could open the door, Cooper ran over to me. "Listen to me, Sean. I need a favor." "I don't want to be humiliated again," I said. "The answer is no." And I tossed my backpack onto the passenger seat. "Just listen," Cooper said. "I want to offer you a modeling job. It would probably only be for one afternoon, maybe a weekend. I'd sign a contract for whatever is your going rate, and you can be mad at me when we're done. I need your help now, please." "You made my senior year hell," I said. "I was your victim of choice. Some of the old crew still call me Pretty Boy because of you, not to mention your fun little pranks. The answer is no." "Sean," Cooper said, "if it wasn't so important, I wouldn't impose on you. I will pay you your going rate and feed you while you are helping me. I will do whatever it takes to get your help, even if it means giving a public apology. Heaven knows I don't need another lawsuit." "Lawsuit?" I asked. Cooper looked at his shoes and said, "You weren't the only one I played stupid games with. My folks almost lost the house." "Sounds like a story," I said. "I messed with the wrong kid," Cooper said. "His dad was a lawyer, and he filed charges against me, my family, the school, and the school district. To avoid juvie and getting my parents dragged into the mess I made, I had to pay a massive fine, do hundreds of hours of community service, and a year-long series of mandatory counseling sessions." "Why are you so desperate to get me?" I asked, folding my arms. Cooper ran his fingers through his hair and finally confessed to something that surprised me. "My dream has been to design my own clothing line, and I have, in my own online store. I've contracted with a small set of tailors in New Mexico who exclusively work with free trade organic fabrics, like cotton or linen or bamboo, to make clothes on demand. When I get an order, I send it to them, and within the month, the client gets their merchandise, freshly made. We're looking to make connections with Amazon, but we aren't there yet." "Where do I come in?" I asked. "All we have are pictures of flat clothes sitting on a table," he said. "Boring. I need a model to wear them so eventually I can have online clickable displays and pop-ups with alternative views of the product, and eventually I want to create seasonal collections." "Expensive," I said. "Tell me about it," he said. "I work freelance for the local paper, covering things like fashion shows to pay the bills. I'll take pictures of you in the clothes. My cousin Ruth is modeling the women's wear, and my uncle is handling the website and business end of things. We not only have to get all of this put together by Amazon's application deadline, but my first fashion show is coming up. I've coordinated with 5 other independent designers, and we've rented a banquet hall at one of the smaller casinos for the runway. We need a professional to wear the clothes, not only for the show, but for the ads and the website, and make us look like we know what we're doing. You won't believe how stressed I am." "Breaking into fashion isn't easy, and can be very expensive," I said. "It's a lot of hard work too," he said. "I'm also a freelance photographer for several photo websites. I also put together articles that I sell to the web about fashion, like Madame Mondesi's fashion show. That's what I was doing here today, putting together a short review about the show. And it was while I was taking pictures that I saw you on the catwalk. I remember that back in high school, you used to model. You've only gotten better. You're a dream come true because I don't have a lot of time and I need help. Best of all, you're local. You know what you're doing. You know things about the modeling end I don't know anything about. I thought you'd be great. You're an answer to all my problems. You're perfect." "One big problem," I said. "Karma is a bitch," Cooper said. "Wouldn't you know, one of the people I bullied back in high school is the exact person I need right now, and he hates me." "Probably always will too," I added. "Look, I'm tired and want to go home. I was having a lot of fun at this event, and then I saw you. The answer is no. Leave me alone." "Sean," Cooper said, "I'm sorry about bullying you, and I will do anything to make up for that. It's crunch time right now, and I'm in a bind. I'm willing to work around your schedule, and my cousin can do your makeup. I'll even sign a contract. Will you help me?" The universe is a fickle place. My high school bully needs my help to model his clothes so he can start his business. What do I do? It's a job, and I'll get paid. The money will always come in handy. But it meant I'd be working near Cooper. I'd model the clothes. He'd take the pictures. Could I handle that without getting disgusted at myself? I'm a professional, but some things are a bit much. "Too much bad blood," I said. "No, I'm not your man." Cooper dropped to his hands and knees in an instant and said, "Sean, I'm begging you. I screwed up back in high school. I knew better, and I don't know why I acted the way I did. Maybe because I thought I was better than everybody. When Mom and Dad separated and Mom and I ran out of money, a lot of people made me realize what a snot I had been. I think I was jealous because you were the best-looking guy in school. You were a model, and you still are the best-looking guy around. I'm sorry for the way I treated you back in high school. I can't expect to earn your forgiveness, but I ask you to look past the problems I've caused because I need your help. Tell you what, if you help me with my website and clothes, I'll help you update your headshots and fix up your portfolio, free of charge, please." Nobody had ever begged me like this before. It actually got to me. Cooper must have nowhere else to turn. Whatever the details were from back in high school, they must have seriously scared him. Call me a softie, but I gave in. "What the hell?" I said. "You do anything that smacks of bullying, and I'm out. If you call me pretty boy, even once, I walk. Friday night, take me on a date and we'll talk about all this. Now get up." "What? You'll help me?" Cooper said. Was I completely crazy? Here I am negotiating with my high school bully? Absurd. I helped him up and said, "Update my headshots, fix up my portfolio, we'll work out the standard contract through my agent, and you're taking me on a date." It looked like a basketball had been slam dunked into Cooper's face. I laughed, held my phone out with my number. "I'll give you one chance. Don't make me regret this," I said. Friday night. Cooper must be desperate. Not only had he contacted my agent and gotten a contract signed, he was picking me up for our date. It wasn't anything fancy, dinner at the Japanese restaurant Oreshi Teppanyaki, and then a walk along the late-night streets. I sat on the steps outside my second-story apartment, waiting for him. My current roommate, Zach, who's also my best friend, had rolled his eyes when I had told him about tonight. I thought about all sorts of mean little tricks I could play. Cooper deserved it, but I better keep tonight calm and professional. Going on a date with one's old bully was weird enough. Was this the oddest thing I had ever done? Cooper pulled up in a black four-door Toyota Prius and climbed out wearing a long-sleeved navy button-down and light khaki slacks. The car was newly washed, and he was freshly shaved and smiling. Just like any good date, he walked up the stairs to me, took my hand, and looped my arm in his as we descended the staircase. Once we got to the car, he opened the door for me and helped me in. I'd never been treated like royalty by any other date. This was weird. He also opened the trunk and pulled something out. When he climbed in, Cooper handed me a long-stem yellow rose with a floral water tube attached to the end. "What's this?" I asked. "Isn't it customary to give a flower on the first date?" he asked. "A yellow rose means friendship, right?" I said. Cooper gave me a shy grin and said, "Doing the best I can." It took us about 20 minutes to reach the restaurant. Oreshi Teppanyaki is a restaurant where they cook the food in front of you. Literally. They have several large tables with a large grill in the middle of the table. The chef stands at the grill, while the diners sit around the grill. Each table here was set up for 10 people, 3 people on the sides and 4 on the long end. As soon as the chef arrived, he threw down a bit of soybean oil and then tossed a ton of shrimp and mushrooms onto the grill. An attendant wheeled up a cart loaded with different items to grill, not just steak and chicken, but carrots, cabbage, sliced onions, broccoli, and a lot more. The shrimp cooked in seconds, and suddenly the chef began tossing them to different people. Cooper and I tried different types of sake and settled on a tap beer. While we talked, the chef grilled strips of steak and chicken and variations of noodle dishes and vegetable dishes, all in a special house teriyaki ginger sauce, and before I knew it, 90 minutes had passed. We walked outside in the late-night Vegas air, talking about high school, about modeling, about fashion design, about our lives. I had the sense that Cooper was trying really, really hard to get me to like him. When he dropped me back at my apartment, he looked at me with one of those serious looks and said, "I really am sorry about high school." That weekend, Saturday, I followed directions on my phone to a beige house with terracotta shutters on the border of Henderson and Vegas. Not knowing what to expect, I brought my kit. It had my personal makeup, a change of clothes, and a video recorder separate from the one on my phone. This recorder also had its own tripod. The goal was to add today's shots to my portfolio. I had also brought my laptop with its video editing software. Being in the same room as Cooper still made me nervous. Maybe Cooper had grown up, because he sure didn't act like the person he used to be. My agent had already emailed him the contract, and it was signed, sealed, and delivered. For this weekend, I worked for Cooper. As I approached the door, Cooper opened it. "I'm glad you came," he said. Even after all these years, even after our date last night, I still resented him. I didn't know how to respond to him being friendly, so I neutrally said, "Tell me about the job." "I want to say sorry again," Cooper said. "A lot was happening that year." I didn't want to get personal around Cooper, so I simply rephrased the same question. "What exactly do you need from me today?" "Like I said the other day," Cooper said, "I need a model to show me what to do and show off the clothes. It's a one-weekend job, but if things go right, it could turn into a seasonal contract." Cooper led me downstairs into an unfinished basement. "My workshop," he said, with a lavish swing of his hands. Except for the bathroom and utility closet, it was one large room overflowing with rows of fabrics, a couple of sewing machines, and racks of clothes. On one of the many tables were his sketchbooks. The far side of the basement held a small photography studio. It was divided into 2 areas, one draped with white cloths to give a blank background, the other draped with smooth green fabric. With the right equipment, green screening would be easy to do. Cooper had invested a fortune on his dream. This either worked, or he would lose everything. I'd do my part to make it as successful as possible. Besides, a grassroots clothing movement with an amateur studio meant a lot less stress than working for Madame Mondesi. I could relax a little. I'd still be professional, but as long as I limited contact with Cooper, I might even have fun. I walked over to the open sketchbook. Men's casual wear. A nice clean design, well drawn, with some fabric swatches stapled to the page. "You have a good eye," I said. Cooper walked over and closed the book before he said, "It's been my dream." A college-age girl skipped down the stairs, saw us, and said, "Hey, cousin, am I late? Your mom wanted me to stop off at the store and pick up more sourdough baguettes. You must be the other model. I'm Ruth, and don't think about hitting on me, because my girlfriend is the toughest SOB on the planet. You wouldn't survive a right hook." Another woman's voice yelled down, "Aw, Ruthie, baby, you say the sweetest things. I'm supposed to tell you guys that lunch will be ready in 15 minutes. I looked through the clothes, placing some against me to make sure they'd fit. I set my bag on a mostly filled table, pulled out some of my makeup, and checked the lighting. Ruth ran back upstairs, leaving me and Cooper alone for a moment. I still felt nervous around him. Maybe this was more than a job, because having him need something from me and then pay me was a comfortable bit of revenge. Cooper sat down on a stool in front of one of the sewing machines and swiveled to face me and said, "I'm really sorry about high school. I was not in the best headspace, and I took it out on other people." "Doesn't make it all right," I said. He nodded and went to one of the clothing racks. He looked through a couple of shirts and selected a long flowing sleeve, loose body, white shirt with a V-neck. Cooper handed it to me and said, "My senior year in high school, things went bad with my parents. They separated but never divorced. I suspected Dad cheated. I was trying to be a good vice president, keep my grades up, be strong for Mom because she was freaking out, which meant I ran the house. I was barely holding on." I took the shirt from him, shocked by the naked pain in Cooper's eyes. "Dad got an apartment away from us," Cooper said. "I thought life would be easier without him around. Turns out he still disapproved of me. Dad's a dentist, and he wanted another dentist in the family, just like him. He was furious if I didn't get perfect grades. He'd already picked out the colleges I would apply to. Dad checked my grades online daily, and the second I slipped up on anything, he called me. When he left us, I thought I was free. Like an idiot, I'd changed my classes to what I wanted." I nodded and said, "I take it that didn't go well?" Cooper stared at the clothes, fingering the fabrics, seemingly lost in some memory, and he finally said, "Dad screamed at me. He was ashamed of who I had become. He considered me a failure just because I took art classes and joined the after-school fashion club. I hate sports, but Dad demanded that I follow his plans for me, or he wouldn't pay for my college. I felt trapped and got really frustrated. Some people eat, some people drink, some people shoplift. Me, I started picking on people. Anyway, then we got served the lawsuit. Mom tried to get me a counselor. Dad didn't want any son of his to be a certified head case, let alone a fashion designer. They fought, a lot. It was around that time that you and I had the lasagna incident. Mom eventually disobeyed Dad and got me the therapist. Things went really wrong in my life. One night I got home and Dad had come over and my parents were having a huge fight about me. I couldn't deal, so I ran away and my cousin Ruth took me in. She got me my first sketchbook and let me talk." Cooper finally looked at me and a tear fell from his left eye as he said, "I think I picked on you because you were everything I wanted to be. You were a model, you got to travel, you didn't have to deal with all of Dad's demands and my parents' constant fighting. I was jealous. I wanted your life because mine was getting worse. Every time I see Dad, he tells me he'll never be proud of me. I think he's sleeping with someone, but I can't prove it." So your dad is not in the picture anymore? I asked. I see him at the family Christmas party, he said. Mom and Dad never divorced, and because Mom works and I'm over 18, we sort of share the space, but Dad still owns it. He keeps threatening to kick me out unless I do as he says, but he hasn't yet. So all this stuff down here is yours? I asked. You seem to have everything together. It feels like my life is constantly falling apart, Cooper said. I can't do this alone. I need your help to make this work, and I really am sorry for high school. I walked over and hugged Cooper. You don't handle stress well, I said. He timidly reached out and held me. Then suddenly he clutched my shoulders, tight, and he frantically whispered, I'm scared. Everything I've worked for comes down to this week. What if Dad's right and I'm not good enough? What if Dad suddenly kicks me out? I'm not ready. As I held him, I looked around at the sewing machines, at all the rolls of fabric, the camera gear, the small studio, the racks of clothes. Cooper had invested a lot of time and money into his dream. I began to understand what Cooper must be going through. Madame Mondesi had a team to help her. But Cooper only had himself. It was an impressive feat to do alone, and I could see why Cooper had gotten so overwhelmed. Feeling better? I whispered. A little, he said. Good, I said. Before we have lunch, talk me through the basics. Remember, we're under contract. You have me for 2 days. Let's see what we can do to put this together. The rest of the day went smoothly. I became Cooper's mannequin, trying on every bit of clothing he had made, then having him primp over me to make the look perfect. And he photographed me, easily 100 pictures for each outfit. We spent 10 hours working together, and by nightfall, we were exhausted. I hadn't had this fun of an afternoon for a long time, yet we had gotten a lot done. I had picked up more of his business than I realized, because some things came naturally. We talked, and somewhere among all the projects, I forgot about the problems Cooper caused me in high school. Somewhere during the afternoon, I let go of the resentment, and the two of us became kind of friends. In spite of him being my former bully, we had relaxed together, worked together, and had fun together. For dinner, his mom made some type of spaghetti casserole, and we chilled on their porch drinking Michelob Dark Lager while talking about his upcoming fashion show. Have you figured out what you're going to call your company? I asked. Men for Men, he said. Simple. It might work, I said. Listen, I can call a couple of friends who are also models, and I think they'll help us when you have your fashion show. You just have to buy us pizza. Thank you, Cooper said, as something glistened in his eyes. I went home that night, confused. One part of me remembered the bully from high school. The other part of me really liked the person I was working with. For some reason, my mind couldn't reconcile the two people. They looked the same, but personality-wise were so different. I sent some text to some friends, then poured me a glass of Chianti. I looked through some old boxes and finally found our senior yearbook. It took only a minute to find me and dive into memory lane reading all the comments. It only took a moment to find Cooper's picture. It was only a couple pages away from mine. He looked normal. What did I expect? Except this photo must have been taken 2 months after he had been sued and forced to go into therapy. His problems with his dad had either exploded or were about to. His picture had a page number by it and a scribble note that said, "Find me, page 12. I sighed. The old follow the page game. I seldom followed all of the pages when people did this to my yearbook. But this one was in Cooper's handwriting. When had my bully found the time to write in my yearbook? The next link said, "Find me, page 203. The next link said, "Find me, page 150. The next link said, "Find me, page 5. The last link said, "Find me, page 37. It ended on an obscure page detailing office staff like secretaries, attendance interns, and lunch ladies. Nobody ever looked at those pages. I found his small note hiding near the bottom of the page. It said, "Roses are red, violets are blue. I'm completely screwed up because I think I love you. I'm sorry for everything I did to you. Signed, your secret crush. My ex-bully loved me? Or had back in high school? Sunday morning, I drove back to Cooper's place about 11. Though we had gotten a lot done yesterday, we had a lot left to do. I had some leftover garment bags, so I brought those. When I arrived, there was an unfamiliar car parked out front, a new blue BMW 2 Series coupe with tinted windows. I didn't know anybody who could afford a car like that. I parked behind the BMW, unloaded the garment bags, and walked to the house. Cars that were already there, Cooper's, his mom, and Ruth and her girlfriends. Normally, Sundays are relatively quiet. Not today. Cooper's mom and whoever this stranger was were screaming. Ruth and her girlfriend stepped outside, gently holding each other. The look on their faces reminded me of people witnessing a shark attack. Cooper must still be inside, because suddenly he yelled, "Why do you never understand?" "I can't believe I raised such a disappointment," some male voice yelled. "I want all the trash out of here, especially the crap in the basement." "We can't do that, and you know it," Cooper's mom yelled. "Since I own the house, I get to say when," the man yelled. "Don't do this, Dad," Cooper pleaded. "My first show is coming up, and I'm trying to get ready." "Like I care," he said. "I want you two leeches gone as soon as possible." That must be Cooper's father. I pursed my lips. A little bit of anger rose in my throat. I blew a breath out to calm my heart. I walked in, setting the garment bags on a chair. Based on the spaghetti sauce covering her hands, Cooper's mom had been in the middle of making chicken parmesan for lunch, but that had been interrupted. Cooper looked a bit pale. He kept his hands in his pocket, probably to keep them from shaking. I'd never seen a person look so sad, so helpless, so defeated. "I will order a dumpster," Cooper's dad yelled, "and it will be here first thing tomorrow. I'll hire 2 guys to dump everything in this house that you haven't taken with you." This rich SOB who wore nice clothes and drove an expensive car was the man that Cooper was most afraid of. Cooper saw me, and his eyes begged for help. In that moment, I saw Cooper differently. Back in high school, we'd been little more than kids, and Cooper had been acting out because of how powerless he felt. That core of powerlessness was on full display right now. His dreams were on display downstairs and were as vulnerable as he was. If he was kicked out before we finished, his dreams would be nothing but smushed dog crap. His vulnerability suddenly made him human, relatable. His intense vulnerability scared me. It hurt seeing him like this. Somebody needed to protect Cooper from his snobby dork of a father. Cooper needed help. I could give that. I've worked with Madame Mondesi. I'm a model. I'm a future lawyer. Cooper needed someone to protect him. Without even thinking about it, I volunteered for the job. I walked over to Cooper and hugged him. "I'm here," I whispered. Cooper clenched me as if I were a life preserver. "Who are you?" the crisply dressed guy yelled at me. Give him a lab coat and he'd look like a dentist. Cooper must be a little flustered because he said nothing, so I replied, "Leave my boyfriend alone, you arrogant creep." "You don't talk to me like that," Cooper's dad yelled. I stood beside Cooper and took his chilly hand and said, "Everything's going to be fine. What's the date on the eviction notice?" "We haven't seen one," Cooper's mom said. "Dad hasn't given us one," Cooper said. "Correction," I said. "Your landlord hasn't given you an eviction notice, and he's demanding you leave immediately? When does your lease expire?" "That doesn't matter," Cooper's dad yelled. "It's my property and I want them gone." Turning to face Cooper's dad, I said, "Tenant rights generally require a formal written eviction notice, registered with the county and stating the date of potential eviction, which cannot be less than 30 days from the date presented to the tenants. It is also helpful for the landlord to furnish proof that they attempted mediation to resolve any conflicts, for example, noise disturbances or payment issues. Let me see the rental agreement." Cooper's mom looked at me, her eyes sad, and she said, "We never had one." "I've let them live here for free," Cooper's dad said, "but not any longer. I'm filing for divorce and I'm going to move into my house. I don't want them here." "Interesting," I said, speaking only to Cooper. "So there was no initial contract. Cooper, no sheriff in the state will attempt to evict you without an eviction notice and its written deadline. Your dad needs to hire a lawyer and begin formal proceedings. Since there was no initial contract, it could take months. We'll have you and your mom moved out long before then. Your dad is like the old dog down the road. Sure can bark, but he is powerless." "You don't know what you're talking about," Cooper's dad yelled at me. "I own this place." "Doesn't matter," I said. "The first thing a judge is going to ask, if these people have lived here rent-free for years, why kick them out now? There are procedures, and you're not following any of them." I gave him a toothy grin and continued, "Judge is not going to be happy with you. Come back when you've got the paperwork. Between the primary lawyer consultation and waiting for the courts, I bet you won't have things put together for 6 weeks, minimum, and then add the 30 days on top of that. In the meantime, you've got a divorce to prepare for. Can't wait to see how property distribution is divided up. In exchange for your wife keeping the house, you might get to keep your business." "You're kidding," Cooper's dad said. "What this means," I said, "is that Cooper and his mom have 2 to 3 months minimum to move, if they even have to. Depending on how fast you can get a lawyer and how fast the courts process all this, will mean you will look like less of an idiot. If you send people over tomorrow to throw things away, that can be construed as theft, destruction of property, and possible vandalism, as well as conspiracy to pressure your wife to divorce you faster. Judge is going to love you. Right now, you need to leave because we have a lot of work to do, and since you don't accept your son as the amazing man he is, your useless butt is getting in the way." "You never took the time to understand me, only to judge me, Dad," Cooper said. "I've got a show to get ready for, so butt out of my life." "You never have to be afraid of your father again," I said. "He compensates for his powerlessness by driving a nice car." "Thank you," Cooper said, and shyly kissed me, as his father ran away. Epilogue. We were backstage at the fashion show, with Cooper making the final adjustments on the clothes we wore. They were all designed by him, made by him, and soon to be marketed by him. The application to Amazon had gone well so far. My boyfriend had been stressed, but happy. We have made a deposit on a 3-bedroom place that we can turn into our place, and his office, and a study center for me. I think I'm leaning toward small business law. Or maybe I'll forget the law part and help Cooper build his business. The divorce would soon be finalized. Cooper's mom didn't want the house, or the half of the business. She was satisfied with the big chunk of change. Cooper's dad had to sell the house to afford it. 3 friends were here to help model for Cooper, and their price was only pizza and beer. We'd party tonight. "Sean, darling," a woman's voice said in a heavy Bostonian accent, "the way you carry yourself, I knew it was you. You must introduce me to your designer. Their ideas are fabulous." I looked to see who it was. Madame Mondesi stood only a few feet away. I pulled Cooper over and said, "This is Cooper, my boyfriend. He made all the clothes. What are you doing here?" "I attend all the independent shows," she said. "This is how I began decades ago. It never hurts to remember the vitality and passion a person can have starting out. Sometimes I can forget the important things. This helps me remember. By the way, Sean, I'll expect you at my fall show. I'm sure your boyfriend would love to see the other side of the catwalk. Bring him." The show started. The audience was made up of a lot of family, a few retailers interested in new clothing styles, and a dozen people who just wandered in. Cooper's mom and a couple of his relatives and friends took up a section closest to the catwalk. Madame Mondesi took a seat near the back. The music started, and I started off the show. One of my friends followed a few seconds later. A familiar face sat to the side, alone. Cooper's dad. Wasn't this the first time he had ever attended one of his son's events? Maybe. It was about 2 years later when Cooper and I married. Madame Mondesi stopped by the reception and gifted us an expensive bottle of wine. "I am incredibly proud of my 2 boys," she said, "and I can't wait to see what the 2 of you create together." We drank the wine on our honeymoon at Paris Fashion Week. The end. Thanks, friends, for joining me. I'm Gio, writer and reader of this story. If you'd like to hear more stories about gay men falling in love, check out my channel. I have a few more you might be interested in. See you next Wednesday. Peace.